Once upon a time, Zelda enemies would die to a bomb or a swing of the Master Sword, and for a long time that was enough to satisfy Link and indeed Zelda players. But with Tears of the Kingdom, those days are gone, because we've played it ahead of release, and we're here to tell you that this game is just one gigantic sandbox of new, bizarre tools and toys with which to kill bokoblins and their ilk, in ways that could be described as wildly creative or deeply sadistic, and frequently both. Here are 7 new and extremely overkill ways to murder your enemies in Tears of the Kingdom. We recently had the opportunity to play a small section of Tears of the Kingdom at a Nintendo preview event that was aimed squarely at demonstrating some of the game's new mechanics. One part of the preview involved an enemy encampment, and this is where we went to town finding creative ways to turn Sweet Link into a pitiless murder machine. New for Tears of the Kingdom is the fuse power, which gloms objects onto your weaponry to create new and wildly inventive ways to make Ganondorf's armies regret the day they were hatched. A favourite find was fusing an explosive barrel to a shield. Now, attaching a barrel of lethally volatile substance to your person might not seem like a great idea, but by Tears of the Kingdom logic, so long as you're behind that shield, you're safe. The same cannot be said for over-enthusiastic bokoblins in front who take a swing at you, however. Oh my god! You may have crossed a line there, Link. Good job you also atomized every potential witness. Admittedly, this killing method may break your shield, but seeing as it somehow doesn't also break Link's arms and remove his eyebrows, I think you have to say fair enough. Another power new for Tears of the Kingdom is Recall. A recent gameplay demo showed how this power can be used to access Hyrule's new island-strewn sky region by reversing time for the large blocks that rain down from on high. Of course, the technology also has military applications, a serious source of worry for enemies who probably thought the tried and tested technique of sending something dangerous hurtling towards Link was a combat strategy unlikely to backfire. Reversing an enemy's incoming projectiles won't always deal a ton of damage, but really, folks, it depends on the enemy, and also, of course, on what they've thrown. Yikes. One thing we really liked about Recall is that deploying it freezes time, so you won't have to struggle moving the on-screen cursor over a fast-moving object. It also reinforces a theme in Tears of the Kingdom's combat, that if you can think and react fast, there's almost always a clever way out of a bad situation. Finding extremely overcomplicated ways to deal out death and destruction gets more entertaining when you break out Ultra Hand, a skill whose bizarre name makes fractionally more sense if you view it as a nod to the Ultra Hand grabbing toy Nintendo made in the 60s. Ultra Hand has got considerably more useful in the intervening half-century, however, because now you can use it to glue objects together and turn them into improvised vehicles using Zonai technology, which includes fans, steering columns, and rockets. We know that it'll be possible to add armaments and turn these DIY cars, boats and planes into weapons of vehicular destruction and plough through your foes like Hyrule is the Fury Road from Mad Max. And now we also know a little more about how Ultra Hand works, and frankly it's really good. The controls for rotating your masterpiece will take a minute to wrap your head around, but they're powerful once you do, and it's easy to quickly bolt together something very cool, even if we didn't quite have the time necessary in our all too brief hands-on to build the wheeled Fortress of Doom we were envisioning. Hopefully no bokoblins saw that. Perhaps you're thinking that having to bolt together an improvised plane every time you want to dive bomb a moblin camp sounds like too much effort. Well, Nintendo agrees, and we can't go into more detail right now, but there is an ability you'll acquire once you've progressed to a certain point that streamlines the Ultra Hand construction process and makes it very convenient. Also, experimenting with Ultra Hand builds is really entertaining, even when it goes wrong. Who knew 2 enormous tree trunks weren't a sound aerodynamic foundation for a flying machine? Link, write that down, if you survive this. The amount of fun you can have fusing stuff to your shield was a big surprise for me during my hands-on time. Fusing a Zonai flame emitter was just one example, but probably the most unnecessarily painful one for Link's foes. Wow, Link, who's the real monster here? The answer is, it was that moblin. You could tell by the snout. It's such a good time fusing random stuff to shields, even if we only had time to experiment a little bit and weren't able to get footage of all the things we did try. All we'll say is, those minecarts, you're going to want to keep a minecart fused shield handy. Trust me, it's amazing. It's our pleasure to reveal Tears of the Kingdom welcomes in that most time-honoured of video game mechanics, mind-controlling an enemy to fight on your side. Here, that's achieved with a flower called a muddle bud, which is a super adorable name for a plant that, when fused to an arrow and fired into an enemy's fleshy bits, causes them to lose their mind and start attacking their friends. Enemies in the thrall of the muddle bud will still attack you if there's nothing else around, so be wary. Or don't be wary, because muddle buds are just some of the resources you can bolt on an arrow to mess up enemies. Ice arrows aren't required if you have some white choo-choo jelly handy. Rare gems can be fused for gigantic elemental, albeit expensive, damage. And fire arrows are tired, fire fruit is wired. With his weapon burning to cinders, this bokoblin isn't a threat anymore. Still, it's best to be sure. Now we're sure. As you're by now aware, Tears of the Kingdom lets you fuse objects to your weaponry to increase their damage and create some truly imposing armaments. Just make sure to watch your six while you're laying waste to Ganondorf's foot soldiers. Ow. But it's not every 5 minutes you'll find a spiked iron ball hanging around, and that's when it's time to improvise, by robbing the body parts of your fallen foes to improve your own weapons. It's not something we enjoy, we do this out of necessity. I said out of necessity, Link. You have to assume it's fairly intimidating for Link's enemies to watch from behind the walls as he slowly assembles a collection of macabre weapons out of your colleague's horns, teeth, and any other spiky bits left when he's done slaying them. Consider this a more straightforward way of juicing up Link's combat potential, when your intricate physics-based traps and schemes just aren't working out. Now, if we've lined this up right, this catapult should send this bomb flower flying straight into... Probably should have seen that coming. Breath of the Wild offered armor and potions that increased Link's ability to move undetected by enemies, but Tears of the Kingdom makes things even easier for those who prefer to fight the stealthy way. For instance, instead of charging through the main gate of this enemy encampment, consider using Ultra Hand to bodge together an improvised hot air balloon. The charge won't last forever, but it's plenty to get you up and over the walls, to descend on your foes from the rear without them ever realising you've arrived. Meanwhile, the new Ascend power has thus far mostly been shown off in a traversal capacity, letting you zip quickly upwards through caves and mountains. But it's also going to let you move among enemies with greater ease. Note that monsters freeze until the moment you decide to pop out. Yeah, you may well question mark, my bokoblin friend. By far our favourite new stealth technique, however, is to fuse something called a puff shroom to your arrow. In Breath of the Wild, once you were detected, it was pretty tough to get back into stealth, but not so anymore. Enjoy your question marks, idiots. So, those are just a few of the new ways to dispatch foes in Tears of the Kingdom. Our time with the game was extremely brief but outrageously fun, and we can't wait to experiment with more deadly traps and get answers to all our burning questions, like, is there a benefit to firing a whole steak into a bokoblin's face, or is it just fun? Please do hit that like button and subscribe for much more Tears of the Kingdom. Alright Link, ready for the big finish? Fingers in your ears folks, this one's gonna hurt. Oh crap. Thanks for watching, folks.